Yeah, but at the same time, then we have this moral dilemma. Let's say, for instance, we know what happened with Hitler, right, with the Holocaust and the World War II, etc. Let's say we have a time machine and we can go back, let's say, 1910, 1905, 1900, and we can meet a little Hitler, right? And we know that what he's capable of doing in the future. So the moral dilemma is, if we can do it, should we kill him or not? So if God knows everything that is going to happen, good or bad, and he can stop it, but he still gives us this free will, then we still get to this new AI technology, like the Minority Report. From all the data that I've been doing this podcast, let's say you've been doing interviews, writing the books, it says that in 5 years, you're gonna make an insurrection. So should we prevent it, and should we jail Bill Federer now, or should we wait till he does the crime? So this is the dilemma.
Yeah, well, the limitation, and I don't even like to use the word limitation, but the one thing is God is just, and he cannot deny his just nature. So everything that he does, it has to be just. And so he has to allow people, he cannot judge people before they do something wrong. Again, if he did, then he'd be taking away their free will, and he'd be unjust for judging somebody that didn't do anything wrong yet, right? And but Jesus, died on the cross so that we've done unjust stuff, but we're approaching God through Christ, and so Jesus took the judgment in our place. But it makes no sense until you realize the end goal is God wanting to have people turn to Him, and that without realizing that God has an eternal plan, then our lives make no sense.
Okay, but from a human perspective, let's take us, humanity. Should we prevent the crime and jail somebody 1 day before or 1 year before he commits, that is upon our data, before he commits the crime?
I don't exactly know the answer to that. I think that's why we have prisons, because we think somebody might go out and commit a crime based on their past behavior, and so we're going to put them in prison. That's why a lot of times they want life sentence rather than killing somebody. But that is something where, say, your past behavior shows that if we leave this guy with little kids, he's going to abuse them. So he's done it lots and lots of times. So let's keep him in jail.
Let's say he didn't do anything to kids, but he was watching pornography, right? He got caught watching kids' pornography. Should we jail him prior to him touching a kid?
Well, that's why we have pornography laws. There are laws that say that.
Okay, let's say somebody is watching YouTube videos on YouTube or on Darknet how to make a bomb, and we know it. Jail him? He didn't commit any crime till today. Yet.
I don't know if I know the answer to that.
I believe this is the biggest question in the next decade. Since AI is so powerful, they can predict our behavior.
It can, to a certain degree. They've found AI makes lots of mistakes. Do
you remember AI 5 years ago? It was nothing.
Yeah.
And AI right now, it makes videos. Okay, 20 seconds long, but they're very, very realistic.
Oh, yeah.
So in 5 to 10 years, AI is going to blow our minds.
Yeah, I agree. But still, I think they call them large language models, and it goes out there and it gets all the information and brings it in. But somebody programs it and says, okay, do not go to these conservative websites to gather information to compile your answer. So the AI is actually using possibly false assumptions.
Correct.
And so it can be...
It's who controls the AI.
Yeah. So you have... somebody used Atari, which is that old-fashioned ping pong game, and they put it up to AI to play chess, and the Atari beat the AI. And they said, wait a second, maybe AI is not as flawless as we think. But when you study history, there's always an advancement, and then it's matched by the other side. So one of the interesting studies is weapons. So the first invention ever was the plow. Cain was a tiller of the soil. And then the plow turned into a weapon, and people started killing each other with them, and people gravitated together for protection, and it turned into cities. But then you had the invention of the bow, the bow and arrow, invention of the sailboat, and then you had bronze weapons, and then you had iron weapons, and then you had big long phalanx spears that the Greeks had, right? And then you had the scimitar sword that the Muslims invented, right? The Damascus steel. It was really light, so they could hold the reins of the horse in one hand, the sword in the other, and cut somebody in half at a full gallop. Then you had the gunpowder. The Chinese, or actually the Mongols, invented a composite bow. So the English had the English long bow, but it was like 6 feet tall. So you had to sort of use it stationary. Well, the composite bow has that recurve in it, and it's a third of the size, but it could shoot 300 yards. And so the Mongols could be riding on horseback with this bow, right? And so they conquered. But then when Genghis Khan died, they took a year off for a big funeral. They diverted a river. They buried him in the river, diverted the river back, and then killed everybody that was part of the funeral procession. So nobody to this day knows where Genghis Khan is buried. But when the Mongols get back to fighting, by that time, other countries learned how to make a composite bow, and the Mongols couldn't get the ball rolling again. The stirrup for riding horses, it was before the stirrup, in Mongolia, they would ride with a little short horses, and they would tie a rope around the horse and leave 2 loops hanging for your big toes because they would ride barefoot. And that made its way to India, and they made the loops bigger, and then across to China, the Silk Road to Persia, and they made them out of leather with metal. And so now you had the complete power of a galloping horse behind the sword. And they conquered all the Middle East, all of North Africa, all into Spain, and then they conquered around Tours, France. And they're stopped by Charles Martel. Well, Charles Martel gets all the horses, learns how to make a stirrup, teaches his men how to fight on horseback, and 5 years later, they win their first battle against the Muslims. And it takes 700 years. So each time there's a technological advancement until the other side catches up. And then another technological advancement and the other side catches up. And another one. And then it turns into information warfare. But the one side, and then the other side catches up. And so I think that the stakes are getting higher. It is taking more of a global dimension that it's never, ever had before. So I do think we're getting close to the climax of this. But I do think that God is a creator God. And when we seek him, he can release ideas that can thwart whatever the bad idea is. And so who knows, but somebody can invent something that can, use AI to shield you from them studying your profile. And maybe they can use AI to get into AI and corrupt all the profiles. So now they're not going to know, and that's one of the problems with AI, because it's just going out there and gathering the information. But if it's gathering from incorrect information, it's going to assemble an answer that's incorrect. I mean, I had somebody say that they asked AI about Abraham Lincoln, and it says, well, Abraham Lincoln didn't believe in God, and he was an atheist. I was like, I read through all of Abraham Lincoln's proclamations of prayer, proclamations of fasting, talking about God, talking about the Creator, talking about, Jesus in his second inaugural address is chiseled in stone on the Lincoln Memorial. He says, both sides read the same Bible, pray to the same God. The prayers of both could not be answered. And indeed, he says, but if 200 years of unrequited toil by the slaves is repaid by the sword, let it be said, the judgments of the Lord are altogether true and righteous. And here he is quoting scripture. Now, how can the AI say, "Oh, he didn't believe in God," when here he is quoting scripture?
Because it was fed with the wrong information.
Yeah, the AI was fed because it went out and looked at all the liberal websites, and it assembled this liberal. So if the databases get so corrupt, people are going to say, "Well, you can't really trust AI." I mean, I've seen AI pictures and they look really realistic until you look really close and there's 6 fingers on a hand. It's like, wait a second.
Yeah, but that was a year ago. Right now, it doesn't make those mistakes anymore.
Yeah, but you could use AI to spot AI.